correct me if I'm wrong, but these folks come in and take over civic administration, take over curriculum, things that people have trained for and have experience and PhDs and degrees in after a grueling 2-day training period?
2-day training, yeah.
2-day training period. Okay. I feel myself getting ramped up. Here's Mayor Paul Schreiber from the city of Ypsilanti.
Good morning. This is the mayor speaking. The seatbelt sign is still on. Ypsilanti City Council is still in control. We don't have any amateurs in control yet.
Thank God.
But I think this legislation, and I really was struggling as to how to start here because this is such a hard issue. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Ypsilanti because I believe that this legislation is really aimed at cities like Ypsilanti that are trying to turn themselves around. They're trying to redefine themselves. They're urban cities that have lost manufacturing, lost the tax base, and yet we have an administration in Lansing that is giving tax breaks to businesses which aren't necessarily going to help cities like Ypsilanti. So we have, at the state level, I believe, really no strategy whatsoever. We don't have any kind of an energy strategy. All we're doing right now is we are encouraging suburban sprawl. Already we've seen that the last 20 years. We have townships have just developed like crazy, really at the expense of cities. And cities have had to cut back, and I'll give you an example in Ypsilanti. Ypsilanti started out being a very small, well-moneyed city. And then when the war came, the bomber plant opened up, and many people emigrated. They came into Ypsilanti for jobs. And there was a saying that there was never an empty bed in Ypsilanti because people were working 24 hours a day. There were shifts all the time. In the house that we bought, the original owners put in a toilet and a bed in the basement. They rented out the basement to a guy who worked on engines in the bomber plant. Okay, so industry starts leaving and the tax base starts leaving. The way the tax laws are in Michigan right now, it's your big bang for the buck is really your personal property tax, which is tax on equipment from manufacturing. So as manufacturing leaves, so leaves your tax revenue. So Ypsilanti has had to deal with that in stages, and it's in waves of cuts. The first wave, the big cut, was in 2003 when the city of Ypsilanti eliminated the recreation department and also eliminated Health and Human Services funding. I'm really glad that Ann Arbor is still able to do that, and you've decided to not cut it. But that was in 2003 for Ypsilanti. In 2008, actually I should say 2007, we put an income tax question to the voters saying, we have two ways we can go here. We can either keep cutting or we can raise our income. The voters said, keep cutting. So we had to keep cutting. We ended up reducing the size of the police department, reducing the size of administration, and we're now really at bare bones. We have an assistant city manager who is also the head of the building department, head of the human resources department, and head of the planning department. And she is so qualified now. Just yesterday, she was offered the job of the city manager of Ferndale. And so that tells you what kind of a training ground Ypsilanti is. In Ypsilanti, you are doing everything and you're getting a lot of great experience. And one of the reasons Ypsilanti is doing so well is because we have a city manager who's been there for the last 15 years. If we didn't have Ed Carisno there, who knows where we'd be now. So where does PA4 come in? Well, the state has not been giving cities like Ypsilanti, urban cities, the tools to be able to reinvent themselves. We're doing okay. We're actually very lucky because we're a college town. A lot of other towns do not have that cachet that we have, and I think cachet is a good word. So PA4 is, I have to look at my notes here. It's really, it's forcing cities like Ypsilanti toward an emergency manager and into contract breaking. Really, it's all about breaking contracts, I think. So why even have bankruptcy? Bankruptcy, if you have corporate bankruptcy, you have the company and the creditors, they come in, they negotiate in front of a judge. There's a negotiation. There isn't any one person that can come in and say, this is what's going to happen. With Public Act 4, you go through, there's a series of steps, and there's no question there's steps, and there's a consent agreement If the municipality doesn't come up with a consent agreement, then you go to the next step, or if you fail to meet the consent agreement. So there are some democratic steps that come, but the final step, when you actually have the emergency manager, that person has ultimate dictatorial authority to do really whatever they want. And there's no reason to have bankruptcy. If you're going to have a dictator changing your finances, selling off your assets, and really usurping the votes of the people.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going to sign the petition, and I hope you do too. Thank you.